Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining me. It's Friday. It's 9 a.m. It's not a normal time for most people to be around watching stuff. So if you're here and you're in a live audience, that's awesome. I appreciate that. This is a special, I call it a progressive power show. But what it really is the pilot to what we will be doing with a lot more people in Oregon, people that are involved in democracy, and we're tentatively calling it Get to Know the DPO. And the first official episode will be with Valdez Bravo, who's the first vice chair of the Democratic Party of Oregon. But today, we have somebody who I've been trying to get on air for a while. Nancy Greenman is just a progressive badass, and she's been doing stuff for democracy a lot longer than I have. I don't even know, actually, how long. We're going to find out. She got me involved with things. She's got me doing Neighborhood Leader Program, which is what we're going to talk about today. And she's an amazing human being, and I'm really, really glad to have her with us today. Nancy, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks for having me, John,
Yeah.
and for the introduction.
Well,
My good.
you know, I'm being modest. You're awesome. I'm 48. You're a little older than I am, and you've got more energy than I could possibly imagine having for all the things that you do. So thank you for what you do for democracy.
And thanks for doing this so that we can share what's going on with each other.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is how we work together, right? It's the most important thing. So before we talk about the Neighborhood Leader Program, tell me how you got involved with democracy and when. How long have you been working for this?
So this is 50 years since 1968. I would say probably let's go back to then. I certainly I did things before then, but certainly in 1968, I was completely active.
Wow. That's huge. Well, thank you for your service. That's really what it's supposed to be, right?
Yep.
So you're not depressed and like over it at this point?
So and we've been talking as we were waiting to go on air and talking about what's international and national issues. And what I've found is the thing that has consistently kept me from being depressed and kept me engaged is I see organizing on a very local level. And I always have. And I have always been touched and heartened and inspired by the people in my community. And we're going to talk about something called the Neighborhood Leader Program. And it's a natural fit for someone like me. For example, earlier this week, I spent a couple of hours in our city municipal courtroom. And I spent it with people who were there primarily because they're poor. A lot of what they were doing there has to do with that. Yeah. And I came out touched and inspired because these are people who are struggling and they're in the fight. And if they're in the fight, yeah, people don't have houses, people don't have jobs, then with what I've been given, I'm definitely in the fight. And being in it with them is what keeps me not depressed.
That's, yeah.
People have spirit.
I like that, and I draw on that sometimes too. You just seem to be able to draw on it a lot better than I can. And you've been doing this for so long. I appreciate that. I'm like year 3. Ooh, I'm tired. See, I don't even have any right to complain. So talk about Linn County. You mentioned that in Green Room. You said if we're going to talk about neighborhood leader, I want to talk about the county, the geography, because it's important. So tell us what's important about Linn County.
So we are in Oregon, a state in which, and I actually come from New York. And let me say that in 1968, the way I became fully politicized,
yeah,
I happened to be living in Europe where there was a revolution. And, when you find yourself in the midst of countries that have been shut down by students and workers, taking to the streets and forming alliances, you have probably the best political education imaginable. And in the United States, there was organizing going on as well. And I found when I came back, I had some lessons in organizing that I could bring to my comrades in the United States that worked really well. Anyway, yes. So I come to Oregon from via New York, New England, California, and now Oregon. And each place that I've lived has had its own geography. Geography determines history, right?
Yeah.
History sets our context. In Oregon, first, as we know, all of Oregon was settled by our first people, right?
Right.
And of every place I've lived, I think in Oregon, I want to say to begin with, I have at least most consciousness or strongest consciousness of who were the first people here. As John, you know, many things where we live here are called Kalpoya, and it is the Kalpoya tribe who's traditional to where we live here. So we have that consciousness. The second thing about Oregon, and it's certainly true in Linn County, is how much of it is public land.
Yeah, it was
so that we, in our towns and cities, sort of are on the edges of large national forests and then also state forests. And timber industry and logging determines where we are today. And we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So there's Linn County. It's kind of in the western third in the middle.
It's where the LN is, everybody. That's
exactly.
LN. Kind of long
and
way.
it goes between, on the western side, a river, the Willamette River. And on the eastern side, it's a mountain pass. So 2/3 of the way, less than halfway from where John and I live on that western, heavily settled border, up to the eastern side, we start driving through magnificent nature, and that's what there is. And there really very few people are living there. So when we're organizing in Linn County, we're organizing in Albany, where John and I live. And John, let's say, lives 10 minutes away from me, 5 minutes by car.
Yeah.
John lives in the country. I live in town. You can't drive.
Do you really? I haven't ever been to Nancy's house. You live in town? See,
I live in town.
See.
And in 5 minutes, there are cows.
Right.
Right.
That's so true. It's really weird. And this is my first rural experience. And so that's what it is.
Yeah. And so, and in Oregon as well, so we have the first people. We have people who came from the East in the mid 1800s. And then we have successive waves of people. And certainly in the past 20, 25 years, there's been a huge wave influx of population coming to Oregon from places like California.
Right.
And so we have layers of who is here, what's their experience, and what are their political beliefs. And John and I were talking about how Linn County, which is a red county, and went something like 65% for Trump. Is that right?
It was.
A sad day. Used to be blue, used to be union, manufacturing and timber industry, blue. And as the timber industry shrank, and that we can talk about why that is, but we don't have a lot of time.
That's another program.
I know, exactly. As it shrank, people's experience and their willingness to have their politics and their beliefs be changed based on their experience caused Linn County to start turning red.
Right.
And what we find is somebody used a term with me at one of our neighborhood leader get-togethers last week, legacy Democrats. And that is when we go out and canvass people, and both in town and in the country, we find people who are registered Democrats who, you might say they're not Democrats. Right. And because if they were to look at the Democratic Party, the state platform or our county platform, they would be more in disagreement than agreement.
Right, because it's moved. The platform has become very different, I imagine, today than it was when the county was
and I'm saying that the platform was probably more progressive in those days. Probably was a strong union platform, but people's opinions have changed.
Sure.
They're not union members anymore. Now they're someplace else. And I'm guessing that a number of people who are registered Democrats either didn't vote or might have voted for Trump.
Sure.
And
then you have the non-affiliated voter space, but we'll talk about that as well. So you're talking about Linn County having, it's red, but it's red because of certain changes that have happened over time in industry and displacement of voters, really, and then kind of disconnect, right?
And so I think, yes, that is true. And I think that the Linn County Democratic Party went through a period that, let's say, that lasted through November of 2016 of becoming less and less active and having fewer and fewer people engaged, right?
Right.
And then in November of 2016, after we got over our initial shock, I think in Linn County, as in many places, we had a real upswing of people saying, I have to do something. What can I do? And for us, this program, the Neighborhood Leader Program, is a direct response to that question.
That's awesome. And so now with that context, and before we get into talking about the program, I want to say we have Marcus with us, and he's in chat, and he can be a comment moderator if there's any questions in the audience. I see we've got some people here. Thank you for joining us. A lot of people from Washington State, actually. Cheese and Oz. Thank you. Hi, Jay Pearson. And so we have Marcus with us. We were talking about Germany, and you were saying, I just found that really cool that you were saying you learned in Germany. You were there in 1968, and then your perceptions, your learning there, were you brought to the United States. And I think it's a really cool tie-in there, because Marcus has been with us, this channel, for a long time, helping us because he is so interested in seeing America fix its democracy. And I just think that's a pretty awesome thing from a person who lives with one that they take an active part in. So I just want to say thank you for being here, Marcus, and participating. So I'm a PCP, and I'm a PCP mainly because you and Graham and other people were like, you should go do this, and then you like helped me do this. You even turned in my what was it? I want to be
application. My application. You're filing to run to be on the ballot.
I'm a lazy PCP. I'm a bad one. Nancy does most of the hard work, but I'm out. Like PCP is supposed to get a lot longer list. This Neighborhood Leader Program, you don't have to be a PCP to do that, right?
So precinct committee person, yes. Our smallest political unit of geography in Oregon is a precinct. And in Linn County, we have, I think, 90 precincts, something like that. And these are geographical areas, but they're determined by number, at least in part, by number of registered voters. And they are the same for Republicans and Democrats.
Oh, okay.
Which are the major parties. Yeah, and they're sort of regulated by state law.
Okay.
And so if you are a PCP, you become the Democratic Party contact person and sort of representative to the county party for those people. And let's say there are some hundreds of people, and there would be at least a couple of PCPs because by law, and it's the gender binary, you have for each precinct at least one female and one male identified precinct committee person.
All right.
Now, to really organize that precinct, that's a lot of people to organize, and it's a lot of people to know and be known by, particularly in, as we were saying, the large part of Linn County that's rural, right?
Right.
To get out and to know people in all of these areas. So one of our Oregon counties, Washington County, a number of years ago, developed this neighborhood leader program, and it is what it sounds like. You become the leader in your neighborhood, and we define neighborhood, as it says, about 35 of your nearest Democratic neighbors. And that can change. It can be more, it can be less, depending upon who you are. And I'm going to use John actually as an example of why it's a great strategy. And I'm actually going to use John as an example of why I love the program.
Yeah,
right?
It works well.
So I'm not a community organizer because I want everybody to be on mainstream culture, dominant culture, time and way. That is to say, now doesn't have to mean now. Now can mean what now means to you. I think a good organizing program allows people to have their lives, meaning at any given moment. So we have about 40 right now active neighborhood leaders. Of those 40 people, at any given moment, life's happening to some in many, many ways, and they're not being active. And they have to be able to come forward and be carried by the rest of us until life allows them to be active. So what's wonderful about a program like that is you say, we're going to keep doing the work. I'm the coordinator. I'm going to keep leading the work. And whenever you can join in, we're ready for you. And we will welcome your energy.
Yeah.
So John, he had his neighborhood walk list for, I was thinking about this, 8 months. Do you think 8 months?
Yeah, I don't know how long.
And I would have conversations with John. Where are you? How's it going? What's up? And I know John's doing work. You're doing this work. You're not, being passive, whatever. You're doing good work. You're not ready yet. But
right.
A couple of weeks ago, we had a conversation, right? And I said, John, let's open your walk list and see who's on it. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, John, it's your neighbor on one side.
Yeah.
Look, it's your neighbor on the other side. And John said, what'd you say?
I already know. I mean, I already talked to them.
I could talk to my neighbors.
Yes.
Right? And then John got on fire, and started doing his neighborhood.
Well, part of it is guilt, because after I talked to Nancy, I'm like, I really need to do something. And so, yeah, but then I looked at my list. And I should have brought a map of the list. I can walk to all 35 places. Like, it's just right up and down my road. And that makes it so much more like, oh, I can accomplish that. I can do that, and I can do that over a course of several days. And I've already eliminated, unfortunately, there's a lot of misinformation in these lists that we need to correct, but I've already, it had me listed in the same house as the people that previously owned it. So well, we can get rid of those too because they're not on there anymore. That's stuff like that. But I also got to meet a neighbor for the first time, just down the way. It was awesome, right? And turns out he believes in some of this, the same key issues as most Democrats. And now I know him, and he knows that I'm active in the Democratic Party. It was cool. That just doing it that way was less daunting than, oh my God, I have 300 people, which is what the precinct committee thing is. Like, you have this giant space, Right. So it was cool when it says, I want to look at this slide. It says the program is flexible. The DPO has opened the program to allies, Indivisible, Our Revolution, non-voters.
We have people, you don't have to be an American citizen.
Wow.
You have to be a neighbor, right?
Right. Right.
The important thing is, will you connect with your neighbors? And at its fundamental base, it's a get out the vote program. And what I'd like to do is take a couple of minutes to describe how does a community organizer, that would be me, relate to a get out the vote program. And get out the vote, if we don't know that, what typically, so my first experience with get out the vote actually was in 1968 when I came back to the United States. I was in college. I signed on to a very progressive man was running in about 2 hours from where I was in college. And he was running for Congress, and they were signing up college kids, it was the year of activism. And I signed up. So I got, down to where his campaign was on a Saturday afternoon. They gave me my walk packet. They sent me out, and I knocked on a door, and the person opened the door, and I was supposed to tell them about Al's 5 points. And I'm ready to do that when this deafening noise of an airplane flying overhead. We were right in the LaGuardia flight pattern.
No, man.
So, we're kind of hanging on, shaking while the airplane flies. And the airplane lands, and the guy looks at me, goes, what does he think about airplane noise and flight patterns? And I look at the card, and I'm like,
nothing.
It's not on the card. And
Right.
And at that moment, I understood that good canvassing, really, if you want people to stick with it, they have to feel like they know what they're talking about. It has to be fun and empowering.
Yeah.
So when we do Neighborhood Leader Program, what we do is we have get-togethers in 2 of our towns. One is Albany, which is on the eastern edge, and the other is Lebanon, which is, 15 miles or more to the east. And once a month on a Sunday afternoon, we get together. Whoever is available can come. It's a way new people can come. And we talk about issues. Recently, we've had our candidates come, and with the neighborhood leaders, develop talking points. So candidates talk, people ask questions. It's great for the candidates. It's great for the leaders.
Right.
People really get a sense, are able to talk about candidates in their own words.
And it's not locked down to party. That's the thing I think I like about this the most, is that you don't have to be a Democrat to be involved with we've got a lot of different groups showing up. And I just put this slide up here because this is some of the stuff you sent me in emails. These potlucks, right? And you said they've been very successful at getting community together and people really feeling good about this. The next one's on April 8th. Right.
No, April 8th was.
We're past. Jesus, this is the last one.
And we did one. We just did one on the 22nd. And so one of the things we've been talking about, we talk about what does nonpartisan mean? We talk about, we had a circuit court candidate who came and talked to us about, what does a circuit court judge do? Why does it matter who's running? Same thing for county commissioner, right? These are things that we might not know about. And we give the neighborhood leaders information. We talk about ballot initiatives.
Right.
So because people have a lot of information, it's okay if they don't have all the information. You feel much better saying, that's something I don't actually know. Let's look it up. Or here are some places you can look it up, But people become identified in their neighborhoods as someone you can call and say, what's going on? That this issue came up, or this is on the ballot. What does it mean? And what that does is it comes back to our neighborhood leader gatherings, and we can all learn from it. So if John talks to a neighbor who has a question or he has an experience, then he tells me, or he comes to the get together. We can sort of talk it through. And it's not to have the right answer necessarily. It's to know what the issues are. And I just want to say the end of the potluck, after we do that, we do role playing. I pretend I'm knocking on your door. You pretend it's your door. Then we reverse. And then we go out and do a mini canvas for about 25 minutes. We have an experienced person with an inexperienced person. We knock on 5 or 6 doors of Democrats in that neighborhood, and inexperienced people get to see that it's not really scary.
Right. Right. And it's not bad. I mean, it's I did it by myself. I didn't really answer a lot of great questions. Just like, hi, I'm here to talk to you about the fact that I hope you vote on May 15th. Right. And I'm glad you mentioned knowledge, because we were talking, I sent you texts. Why do we do this? Why are we contacting non-affiliated voters? Why don't we talk to them after the 25th? I didn't understand some of these things. And also, what am I supposed to tell people about the different stuff on this ballot? I didn't know any of those things. And so this is great to go to the potluck and say, well, how did you answer this question? Or how did you address this? Right. And the fact that it's flexible, I don't have to follow a provided script by said Democratic Party, just having a conversation with my neighbor. Right. So talk about why we're having a conversation with our neighbor, but it's done kind of through the Democratic Party. Why? Let's address the non-affiliated voters.
So that comes out of our potlucks and our conversations as neighborhood leaders. There's this conversation we've all been having in the progressive community about reaching across the bridge. What are our commonalities with people? How do we not define people into a polarization? How do we build bridges? And
right.
So in Oregon, our major political parties, as throughout the United States, are Democrats and Republicans. However, we have motor voter registration, meaning as people come into the state and register as young people, get their driver's licenses or learner's permits, they are automatically, the default is to be registered to vote. And the default is to be registered without affiliation, NA, non-affiliated.
Right.
So what has happened in Linn County, as in most of Oregon, is Democrats and Republicans are kind of holding steady while the gross number of non-affiliated voters is rising. So I think we looked at the House district, the State House district that John and I are in. And at this moment, there are more non-affiliated voters than there are Democrats or Republicans.
Isn't that statewide as well? Don't we have like 40-something percent statewide?
And I, you know what? I'm not going to speak statewide, but I know that the trend is the same. And it's because, as in many largely rural states, we have the Portland metro area, and it is a beast unto itself.
Yes.
And so what happens there is different from what happens. And it may be that more people there are doing party affiliation. But certainly in the rural counties, I think what we're seeing is happening. And so the question for us is, who are non-affiliated voters?
Right.
Now, and frequently they are non-voters.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So we decided, our neighborhood leader program in Linn County, we decided, let's canvass some of them. Let's talk to the people in our neighborhoods and find out who they are. So Steve, who cuts our turf, that is, who creates our walk list, added non-affiliated voters under 40. And so now we can see who they are, and we are invited to go out, and then John and I were talking before the show about what's deep canvassing, right, to deep canvass them. And when you know what that means is, it's a term, but it means something that many of us have done in many contexts. It means, I'm not coming to your door to tell you something. I'm coming to your door to hear what you're thinking. So I am going to try to encourage you to tell me what's your key issue. What are you concerned about? And how do you feel about it? And as you tell me, I'm certainly going to try to ask questions if I think you're getting misinformation, if I think you don't have all the information. If I want you to make connections, I'll ask you questions. But really, I'm wanting to have you talk and to sort of go through the experience of really delving into something that matters to you and seeing what you really think about it, right?
Right, right.
And the other thing I want to know is, from many of our non-affiliated voters, is what's keeping you from voting? And we didn't decide to do this because then we're going to ... we're going to take a particular action. We decided to do it so we could bring the information back and look at it and consider it and see what it tells us and what kind of action might be directed from what it tells us. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, sure. You're reaching out to people that aren't Democrats and asking them why they chose not to be, without saying Democrats. Just what's going on. You just want to, it's a listening session. But in that, is there also personal testimony? Is that not part of the deep canvassing from our perspective as well?
Well, and to hear what it is people believe and why. So that certainly is personal testimony, because my beliefs are based on my experience, right?
Right, exactly. And that making a connection that way with somebody, as it relates to their lives or your lives both, is a more powerful way to build a relationship in general. It's just a sales technique, but really it's not about selling anything. It's just about communicating with your neighbors.
And the other thing is, we don't know who these voters are.
Right.
We don't know what they think. And how are we going to find that out? Right.
Right. The databases, I'd say this, we don't know a lot about even the people on the database. It's not in the best of shape. So this is a great way to find out, really, and kind of improve that information that we're drawing from.
And John asked me, one of your questions was, why was my directive canvas, if you have time to be having those conversations, let's wrap it up by April 25th, yes, which happened to be the day. And the other thing is, non-affiliated voters who may find in that conversation a passion for the Democratic Party, we have a closed primary, so they had until April 24th to change registration, register Democrat, and vote in the Democratic primary, right? So as of the 24th, that ability to change ended and ballots started going out. Well, when that happens, really what we're wanting to do, our first task, as the email I sent last night said, is we want our Democratic neighbors to vote.
Right.
So first, now we're getting out the vote, and now we're following up with our neighbors. We're asking them, do you have questions about things on the ballot? Can we help you get information? And let's be sure you get your ballot in by the 15th of May. And people who aren't in Oregon and don't know this, we have 100% mail-in ballots. Yay, would that the rest of the country went with us. And so our ballots were started to mail out on the 25th. I have my ballot.
Yeah, me too.
John has his ballot.
Got it already. That was fast.
And so we can now, we have time that we can, with our neighbors, look at things and share information. It is a fabulously democratic way of doing voting.
It is. It is. I think it's really cool. And we're actually out of time. We're over time on this supposedly 30 minutes, but that's right, because I want to go over two things. One is success. Do you feel that the neighborhood leadership program has been successful? And I know you sent several. I've got some statistics here and some slides from the measure.
Can we? So let's look at, did we make a difference?
Yeah, Measure 101. And let's talk about that.
So can you like post us up just for a sec?
Which slide do you want?
The table I sent you, it says.
That one? Did we make a difference? There you go.
So this is for Measure 101, which was a special election asking us, do we support our Medicaid full expansion? And what I'm showing here is in Linn County, here's what's happened with other money initiatives, tax initiatives,
right?
Essentially. And the most recent was Measure 97, which was about, do we want corporations to pay their fair share? And it lost. It got, I'm peering at this, 28% yes in Linn County. Even Measure 66 and 67, which were fairly popular in 2010, only got, the highest was the 43%. Measure 101, we got 48% almost voting yes. And it was neighborhood leaders who heavily canvassed and phone banked to get out the vote to vote yes. Now, was that what made the difference? It certainly was part of it. And we have the statistics here. So we phone banked, we did walking, we talked to our neighbors. We did street demonstrations as well. And yes, I think we feel that we had a real positive impact on that. And then the other that I wanted you to show was what the sort of individual impact, and that is our how many, did I send this to you, the percentage of people who voted that were canvassed by neighborhood leaders? So overall,
in January, I have the number 41%.
This one here. I'm just going to hold this up.
Yeah, I don't know if you sent this one to me. There you go.
Okay. So what this says, and I'm gonna walk. I'm gonna
hang on. Do it again. I got to do full page. Do it again. There you go.
So overall in Linn County, 32% of voters voted in Measure 101. 41% of both Democrats and Republicans voted in that election. Of the people who were contacted at all by neighborhood leaders, 49% voted. That's up 8% from the general Republican or Democrat. Of the people we talked to face-to-face, 70% voted.
Wow. We all know that face-to-face is the number one way. And that's awesome.
That's what we're building on. And, I think that what I believe, and if we're going to have parting words, I have one thing to say finally, but this will be the penultimate.
Sure.
Is regardless of what you and I think, John, about issues, if we have a truly informed electorate that's really thinking, we got to trust it.
Okay. I agree with that.
In other words, I'm a community organizer. I'm not trying to cram my beliefs down somebody's throat. I'm trying to empower somebody to really think about what benefits them and their community and to act on it. And that's what we're doing, I would say.
I think it's awesome. Because it's just the outreach at the very basic level that needs to happen. If we weren't doing it for a party reason, we'd be doing it just to meet our neighbors 100 years ago. It's just what you did, and making it about the issues which is really where this is at. It's very Bernie in my mind. You know, healthcare. You talk to your neighbors about healthcare. It's not about, hi, I'm a Democrat, I want you to be in the Democratic Party. It's, let's talk about healthcare, and there's a measure that we should approve, and that's the face-to-face success that you're seeing out of that. It's been so awesome, and I really appreciate all that you've done, not only for the party and democracy, but with the Neighborhood Leader Program, because you know, I've known you for a while now, and I've never seen you as impassioned and happy doing what you're doing. So I'm glad you found a nice fit. I think you like doing it.
Perfect fit. Can I say my last thing?
Absolutely. And then we'll talk about the song and get out of here. Yeah.
Today happens to be the birthday of our county party chair, Graham Kislingberry. So I just want to say happy birthday to Graham and wish him all the best and thank him. Talk about somebody else who does great work.
Graham.
Here is the volunteer of the century. So
I'm so glad you said it. Graham is a wonderful, wonderful person, you know. And to those, everybody, when I see people on Twitter and in the socials say the Democratic Party is terrible and screw the Democratic Party, you go meet the actual human beings that are in the Democratic Party, not the figureheads that they talk about on national TV. The Nancy Greenmans and the Graham Kislingberries, we are the Democratic Party. We're what make it good, right?
Exactly.
Thank
you out there in virtual reality land,
wherever the hell you are. So how can people get if they want to do this? If they're in Oregon and they want to do this, what's the first place they should go? They're where?
So virtually every county has a neighborhood leader program, and you can go to dpo.org and pick your county and see who, you know, how do you contact your county?
All right.
Right. And you can certainly do that. We are Linn County Dems.org, Linn, LINNCO Dems.org. And if you're Googling it and you find yourself in Iowa, you're in the wrong Linn County.
No, we beat them now.
No. Iowa always gets the most hits. So
not
we
anymore.
Always there because they've got that first primary.
Well, yeah.
And you can get active. You can fill out a little, I want to volunteer, and it'll come to me. Yes.
That's for Linn County Dems. I put the link for that the Linn County Dems link is in the description of this YouTube video, everybody. DPO.org is the or the main Democrat Party of Oregon site. Nancy, thank you so much. Marcus, no, I'm sorry. And everybody, we don't have time to take questions. From what I could see, Nancy answered most of them. Appreciate you being here. Please share this and look for more of these. We're going to do more of these conversations with people who are active in their democracy and talk about aspects of it. So, Nancy, thank you so much.
Thanks, John. Have a good day.
Well, you got it. Now, you picked the song. So tell us what you picked and why. All right.
Oh, come on. We're going to start hearing the first lines of the song, and you'll know it's self-explanatory.
All right. Well, it's Phil Oakes. That's what I want to hear. Thank you, Nancy.
Thanks, Dad.
Oh, you tell me
go do something for your democracy, everybody.
$1 is gone, and you say that your pockets are bare. And you tell me that your clothes are tattered and torn and nobody seems to care. Now don't tell me your troubles, no, I don't have the time to spare. But if you want to get together and fight good, buddy, that's what I want to hear. And you tell me that your job was taken away by a big old greasy machine. And you tell me that you don't collect no more pay and your belly is growing lean. Now if I had the jobs to give, you know I'd give them all away. But don't waste your breath calling out my name if you don't have nothing to say. And you tell me that you don't have nothing to do and you keep on wasting your time. And you say when you want to get your family some food, you gotta spend in a really fly. Now it's a sin and a bloody shame about the way they're pushing you round. But when you decide not to take no more, you know I'll put my money down. 'Cause I've seen your kind many times before, and I'll see you many times again. Oh, but every bad thing that's happened to you has happened to better men. So don't explain that you've lost your way, that you've got no place to go. You got a hand and a voice and you're not alone, brother, that's all you need to know. And if you're still wondering what I'm trying to say, let me tell you what it's all about. Now nobody listens to a single man when he's walking round down and out. So if you're looking for an answer, he's standing there by your side. And you'll never really know how far you'll go till you join together and try. So you tell me that your last good dollar is gone, and you say that your pockets are bare. And you tell me that your clothes are tattered and torn, and nobody seems to care. Now don't tell me your troubles, no, I don't have the time to spare. But if you want to get together and fight, good buddy, that's what I want